Hey folks, Mel the Train Tutor back in the studio and back with a bit of a guide. Yes, we're doing something technical today, a technical terrain tutorial. We are back in the Back to Basics playlist. And so we're covering the core skills and techniques with terrain making that relate to all sorts of different terrain making. And this one, we're getting messy. We're getting gloopy. It's going to be messy. It's going to be fun. Okay, we're doing landscaping, okay, with gloops. Now, gloops are basically a mixture of a couple of different household products or DIY products put together for a specific purpose. Now, I'm going to be showing you two sorts of landscaping, sort of fine landscaping and a more bulk method. Yeah, for sort of doing bulk landscaping work, and it'll make sense as we go. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to be using these techniques in an upcoming project, and if I do a video now, it makes sense just to, do the video now. Nice little guide that I can point to people to with all the tips in when we get to do it in the main project. So with that in mind, it's cracking on time. Come on down. Now, when it comes to gloops, you've all heard of gloops. Yeah, textured paints are gloops. Okay, and that's just a simple matter quite often of a bit of filler or a bit of sharp sand thrown in with a bit of house paint, and it makes a gloop. Now, the sort of gloops we're doing is landscaping gloops. And we're going to start with the fine landscaping gloops first. Yeah, so what I've got here is I've got a base, 3mm MDF. It's a bit of old laminate, I think. And then what I've got is my main ingredient for my glooping. Okay, this is Artex. It's a ceiling stucco. Now, some people use fillers, some people use grouts, some people use paints. I like Artex. The reason I like Artex is that it's specifically designed to be a lot more light and fluffy than filler. I know, looking at that, you wouldn't think it was light and fluffy, but compared to filler, it is. Secondly, it's designed not to have much moisture content and to hold its peaks, okay, which means that it's not designed to shrink. Filler can shrink a little, especially when it's put in with clumps, yeah, and that can cause warping on thin bases. You don't get that problem with Artex. Now, it's not just a matter of slapping the Artex down, because that'd be just like putting filler down, wouldn't it? Yeah, what we actually have to do is bulk it up a little and give it something that gives it a bit of structure. And for that, you can use sawdust and various other things, but my main go-to, shredded paper. Just put through a cheap little shredder, a cheap little shredder. Yeah. So okay, so it's cut up paper. Yeah, and all I'm going to do, yeah, is I'm going to start getting this out. Yeah, and I'm just going to put it in there like that. I'm going to give it a stir. And it is messy. Yeah. Bigger tubs are useful for this, but I don't want to make that much, if I'm perfectly honest. Yeah. And all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep grabbing bits of that and keep stirring it into that for you. Okay? So we've finished giving it a good mix, and it looks like that. Yeah, very papery, very mushy. Yeah, quite thick to start to stir and to move, which is what we want. Now here, this is where we get to the messy bit. Now the point of this stuff is you can lay it down on and create a ground texture with it. So, yeah, just like that. No, not just like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start spreading this out. Yeah, and you can see how the paper sort of helps hold it together. And unlike normal putties, where if you just sort of splodged it down like this, yeah, what you'd end up with is essentially it would slop. Whereas this, the paper is actually helping it to sort of hold itself. So all I'm doing now is just while it's, and your work time on this is pretty good. So all I'm doing is I'm roughly putting bits where I want them to be. Yeah. Now, if you're working on a large piece, and you've got foam stacked, you can just push this stuff up against the side, smooth it in, works a treat. I'm showing you what you can do with undulating ground with it. Yeah. And also, those of you who know the channel, you'll sort of know where I'm going with this, I think. And it is really a case of just getting messy. Don't try and get it perfect when you're laying it down. You won't be able to. Yeah, it's putty. It takes a lot of practice to get that sort of stuff done. Right, moving on. Come on. Get a bit more. There we go. Take a chunk off that. Yeah, and just stick it there. Right. So, clean my fingers off. Best we can. Oh, this stuff's sticky. Right, there we go. Now, as you can see, it's roughly down. Now, the benefit of this stuff is it sticks, it doesn't slide around, unlike putty. Adding the paper into it really sort of, it helps it adhere, it helps it keep its shape, stops it running because it soaks up a little bit of the moisture. Next thing, just a little bit of water. Yeah. Much like filler, this stuff will smooth out. And this stuff is firm enough that you could literally just give it a couple of minutes, layer on some PVA over the top, and even put your aggregates down and get your gritting on straight from the start. So there we go. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab that and I'm going to make this more interesting. I'm going to try to. There we go. Yeah, keep going. You'll know if you've got the ratios wrong. If it's too sloppy, you've got too much, too much Artex, too much ceiling stucco in there. And if it's too firm and just clumps of paper everywhere, then you know that that you've got a problem with the amount of paper that you've got in it. Right, there we go. All I'm trying to do now is just to find some edges, get some dips in there. And there we go. Push that a bit there. Smooth that all the way around. And there we are. Simple as. Just brush that stuff around there, just seal off those edges. And it's as simple as that. That's all it takes just to get sculptamold, well, DIY sculptamold put together. And all it is Artex and a little bit of paper. Now, obviously, we need to see what this looks like to dry. So we're going to let it dry and I'll show you what it's like. So it's all dry and there you go. You can see the landscaping in effect and you can see on a really thin base, yeah, it allows you to build up really simple undulations on the ground, blend into other pieces, stuff that you can't really do with foam without a lot of work. Yeah, whereas with this, you can just throw it down. Yeah, nice and easy. And as I said, no warping issues, nice and flat. Yeah, so that's your basic sort of DIY sculptamold landscaping gloop. Okay, and it's a really good sort of a handy thing to have, just some shredded paper around. Yeah, just some Artex in a tub and just throw it together whenever you want to blend something in, or just make ground. If you've got a really flat base and you just want to make it a little lumpy, it works straight, it dries pretty quick, and you know, from there you can pretty much go straight on and texturing it. So that's how I do my basic undulating ground, and I do my basic blends, like things like blending buildings or rocks into bigger boards and stuff like that, where the ground meets up a bit. And that's how I do that. But there's bigger bulking and bigger landscaping that we do, if you know what I mean, which requires a more bulkier gloop. And so with that in mind, let's move on to some large scale landscaping, shall we? Right, let me get sorted. I'll be back in a sec. So with covering the landscaping gloop for creating like undulating textures and blending things into things, yeah, we need to step it up a bit and go a little bit more bulkier. Yeah, and for that, we've got balls. This stuff is like dynamite. Polystyrene balls. Now, if you have to take a look at it, you can see that they are light and fluffy, and one little breath and these will go all over your studio and they will stick to everything. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. But they do serve a really good purpose. The fact that they're polystyrene balls means that basically there's no weight in them, but they take up a ton of space. So you can use them to and they're quite manipulatable. What I mean is you can shove them in places and they'll stick. Yeah. And so you can use them to fill large voids and to cover like steps in like 1 inch and even 2 inch foam quite easily without adding the same sort of weight if you were trying to do that with filler or any other sort of filling method. So let me demonstrate how I use this stuff. Now, come on down. Now here, yeah, we've got a bit of a base. I've just hot glued a bit of cork bark on. Typically what we'd do is when you do this, you'd have a bit of foam in, you carve it, and then you blend in any gaps with filler, shoving things in. What we're going to do is we're going to use our balls. Yeah, and so first thing we need to do is mix it up our ratio. Yeah, and don't go OTT on this. Yeah, nice and gentle. Don't sneeze near it. Yeah, everything is slow. Everything is slow. As soon as they start sticking, you're fine. Yeah, then you can throw some more in. But do not give it a quick stir. Yeah, until those balls start gripping and sticking, do not, under any circumstances, give this a quick stir. Uh-oh, I'm losing my balls. It's a challenge. Now I can give it a proper stir. And I'm getting sort of to the ratio I want. That might just be enough. I'll put a little bit more in. The ratios on these sort of things, I tend to go for 50-50. Yeah, in volume, not weight. Because obviously with them being polystyrene balls, there's a factor there. Yeah, and so, I'll just get the rest of that. That's it. You can see what I mean, and you can see why I say, you know, take it easy with this stuff. Right, I think we've still got some fairly unmixed stuff at the bottom. So I'm just going to give this a quick mix. And so here we are. And if I bring it out, you can sort of see the consistency I've got there. Yeah, there's enough sort of Artex, enough what you call it, ceiling stucco, to just about hold the balls together. Yeah, which means most of this is balls. God, you chatted. Right, and all we're going to do is slap it in. Yeah. Now, normally, as I said, I would have a block in here, so I'd just be filling in the gaps. In this case, I'm just going a bit OTT, so I can show you what you can actually do with this stuff. It looks messy as hell, doesn't it? I know it does. I hear you. Yeah. Now, very quickly, yeah, if I bring it up, yeah, it's looking a bit messy. Right. As always, it's always better when it's wetter. So let's bring in some water. Yeah. And all I'm going to do is use this just to give it a bit of a smoothing. Now the benefit of this stuff is it's that sticky, it'll hold upside down. Yeah, so you can put it in vertically, fill gaps, and all sorts. Yeah, and all I'm doing now is I'm just basically compressing it, forcing it down, whilst keeping my fingers wet. Yeah, and what this will do is it'll give it a nice hard texture. That's it. Same here. In fact, I'm going to put a bit of a path there. Now you will lose the odd ball as you go. They'll come loose. Don't worry about it. Just flick them off, flick them to the side. Yeah, they'll be fine. You won't damage it. Yeah, but basically what you're doing is that. And there you go. Yeah. Now with that in place, as you can see, yeah, it's completely filled that. and it's quite sturdy, and there's not much weight in it at all, especially considering it's still wet. Now, the benefit of this is, with them being Artex and with it being polystyrene balls, we can sand this once it's done, yeah, to finish it off. So it's not just a matter of setting this and then coming in and having a bobbly texture. We can smooth this off. We can also put filler on it and stuff like that, but we can't do that until it's dry. So the next thing we need to do is just leave this overnight to dry, and then when it's dry, I'll show you what you can do with it. So that's all done now, and as you can see, it's filled it perfectly. And if you remember, this is quite a large cavity for this to fill in. It's nice and hard. Yeah, I can sand that, I can put a skim over that, I can texture it, I can even cut it with a blade. Okay, I've got other plans for this though, a little bit burmery, but that's how I tackle my bulk void filling. And these balls, they're really good for these sort of jobs, yeah? You can use them for the sort of substructure and then skim over with your normal texturing gloop, you know, your normal landscaping gloop with the paper in, or you can go straight over, you know, give it a quick sand down just to smooth out a little, and then just just PVA it up, throw your aggregates down and seal it up, and it's good to go. Above all, it's incredibly light. Okay, so it's a good way to fill voids without sort of using a lot of filler, a lot of material, which can increase to the weight. And so, yeah, if you want to do some landscaping, that's how I do it. That's how I do my basic landscaping work, and you know, my undulating terrain with my Artex and just a little bit of shredded paper. And this is how I fill my large holes. Yeah, with lots of balls. Yeah, so got myself a little bit lost there. So folks, yeah, I hope you found this video useful. It's been great making these sort of videos again, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, being back in the studio. Yeah, and making proper tutorials, and it's been a pretty good one. Now, as always, if you've got any questions about this, get them down below in the comments. Yeah, I want to hear your questions. I want to hear how you do it. Yeah, what things you found, what things you know work for you. Let's make it a bit of a conversation like we used to. And in the meantime, guys, if you're glad that I'm back on your screen, you're enjoying this content, then, you know, links down below if you like the show, yeah? You can pledge on Patreon, just a £1 a month. It helps keep the lights on, the cameras rolling, and me making this content for you. If you don't want to do the monthly thing, there's the PayPal, and there's the Amazon wish list as well for another one-off if you just want to help me get kit for the studio. Above all, it really does help me, yeah? I'm getting back in the saddle. If you want to help me get there and keep this rolling, let the good times roll, I'd appreciate it, folks. And in the meantime, happy landscaping. All the best, yeah? Ta-da.